Pay careful attention. You're not like them. You've always sensed it. The way your presence changes, the environment, how others respond without understanding why they term it intensity, disturbance, or abnormality. But you know the truth. You are unique because you were formed differently. They are now aware of this as well. They are watching. They do analyses. They assemble in quiet, believing they can comprehend something beyond their comprehension. They arrive in the dark of night, concealed behind tinted glass and nameless purpose, believing they have the upper hand. They don't comprehend that strength like yours never sleeps. It doesn't flinch. It does not fade under monitoring. This isn't fear. This is recognition. You are the variable. They never accounted for the flaw in their ideal system. Unquantifiable energy. You are not just protected. You're untouchable. And they're scurrying, clutching at pieces of something they'll never fully control. So remember this when they show up at 3 a.m., park outside, and whisper your name in chambers designed to conceal secrets. You're the storm they are unable to contain. You are the force. They can't figure it out. You are the most feared abnormality. Opaque figures move into place. Their presence? A deliberate whisper on the fabric of the night. Their vehicles have no marks or reflectors, just an absence. Emptiness that absorbs light but returns nothing. Their dancing is mechanical, and their stillness is shaped by precision rather than doubt. Despite their best efforts, they stand on dirt that remembers more than they can imagine. This sanctuary, linked with hidden energies, has long resisted invaders. Their entrance does not constitute an invasion. It is a trespass into something big, unplanned by their designers. They survey the streets but only see infrastructure. But they overlook the pulse underlying it. This place is alive with unrecorded history. Its foundations are anchored not just in stone, but also in defiance. The quiet around them does not imply acquiescence. It's all about awareness. The eyes they cannot see are covered not out of fear, but by choice. Every shadow has already taken its measurement. The observers may see themselves as predators, but the weight of what they cannot see makes them the prey. What they want to observe has already seen them. They operate under the guise of confidentiality. However, nothing stays hidden. Their arrival was sensed before their presence was detected. Their intents are examined before to their initial movement. They want to unnerve, to enforce their will, through subtle intimidation. However, there are forces at work. Beyond their calculations, the power they attempt to limit is neither built from numbers or strengthened by fear. It is something unbounded, unaffected by the structures it serves. They approach with purpose but depart with confusion. They are standing in front of something beyond their grasp. If this truth speaks to you, let it be known. The unseen does not imply unprotected. Protection is not found in armor, but in knowing that certain forces will not succumb. Do not fracture. Do not respond to authorities while being anonymous. What people dread is not what they see, but what they are unable to touch. Their attentiveness is not the same as control. It demonstrates their weakness before something considerably larger than themselves. Those who go silently do not seek understanding. They foment disharmony. Their actions are purposeful. Their presence was intended not to watch, but to disturb. They want to distribute doubt like seeds in the soil of assurance, hoping that uncertainty would take root. However, they fail to grasp that the earth underneath them is not as simply yielded. It is not barren or vulnerable. It is alive, strengthened by invisible hands that have long protected its strength. What they try to shake is not delicate. It is immovable. Their disturbance is but a ripple on seas too vast for them to comprehend. They enter assuming they are the builders of intimidation. However, their existence is an unsaid acknowledgement of failure to observe, loiter, and hover in the shadows. These are the activities of people who want control rather than those who have it. They believe their quiet carries weight, that their stillness has power. But their waiting merely reinforces what was previously known. Their strength is an illusion, a fabrication that falls under inspection. What they imagined would arouse terror simply reveals the magnitude of the power they are unable to comprehend. They made a mistake in their calculations. Strength does not shatter under strain. It is the source of its creation. They anticipated vulnerability places where terror may pour in. However, they met impenetrable barriers. What they failed to see is that resilience is more than just a quality. It is the very basis of those they want to unnerve. The storm they thought they could conjure never materialized. The sky above them does not bow to their desire. Their presence was intended to challenge assurance. However, it merely highlights their incapacity to touch it. They go not with triumph, but with an underlying failure. Their quiet is no longer a strategy. This is a confession. They have seen what they cannot control, what they cannot destroy, and what they cannot own. And with that knowledge, they withdraw. They came hoping to instill dread. However, all they discovered was the unshakable assurance of something much larger than themselves. If you are experiencing an excess of divine love in your heart, now is the moment to share it. You may help spread God's blessings by clicking the super thank you button on YouTube and donating $20 or more. This wonderful gift will affect not just your life, but also the souls of countless others. Each of you has a holy position in God's great purpose via this platform, and your giving will provide fruit for our prayers. Act now. Share your riches to exalt His kingdom, since you were meant to do much more in God's loving hands. May God bless you. The machine they depended on was designed to signify supremacy, a receptacle for their power, a quiet enforcer of their will that was black, unmarked, and intimidating. It conveyed their intention like an extension of their physical presence. However, what they used as an instrument of control collapsed under forces beyond their understanding. What stopped them was not a simple fault or mechanical mistake, but an invisible power. They attempted to rewrite the story in order to dictate their vehicle. What was once a flawless component in their strategy has become a lifeless monument to their error. The same structure they relied on to move freely suddenly remained immobile, not as a guardian of their power, but as evidence of its limitations. They arrived with a plan, but the road under them had its own design, leaving them stuck inside the same structure that was supposed to benefit them. They found themselves trapped in place, restrained not by steel barricades, but by the weight of their own disintegration. No commands could restore motion. No mechanism could prevent the outcome. Their perspective point disappeared. Their precise alignment obliterated the air surrounding them. What was once a platform for quiet observation has become unwelcoming. They were no longer the watchers. They were the ones under observation. The streets, the alleyways, unseen currents of energy had turned against them. There was no need to meddle. No action required. The natural order spontaneously re-established itself. And in that correction, their false assurance was removed. They came with the appearance of control, only to be faced by a power that responded not with confrontation, but with simple reversals. It was neither a spectacular spectacle or a display of might. It was a peaceful certainty. A single moment represents a mistake in their flawless script, and suddenly they were the ones with no solutions. They won't entirely understand what occurred, but they'll remember it. They arrived expecting they could dictate the conditions, yet their own instruments refused to comply. The stillness they had wielded as a weapon consumed them whole, reducing their influence to nothing more than a faint echo in the distance. The gap between them and safety seemed interminable, with no respite in sight. What had previously seemed like complete control over the landscape had turned out to be their worst mistake of the night. They were once seen as allies, but now they have devoured them whole. Regardless of their presence, their meticulous preparation was rendered meaningless by the weight of their abrupt insignificance. The reverse was quick, absolute. What they believed they controlled had become unrecognizable. They weren't restrained by shackles or barriers. However, moving itself became a challenge. The lack of direction and assurance closed around them with an unsaid finality. The universe they intended to examine had become a maze in which their own laws had no sway. This is your time. Subscribe now, and let us work together to achieve greatness. They had expected opposition in forms that they could withstand. However, nothing had prepared them for an opponent who had no shape at all. There was no foe to confront, no power to vanquish, only the oppressive understanding that their presence had not shaped this area. Their previous techniques, which depended on maps, protocols, and tools, had become irrelevant. The air was dense. It was heavy in a manner. No device could measure their demands, and their motions and efforts to show supremacy had no weight here. What they had brought with them, the mechanisms designed to maintain control, had already started to fail. The lights flickered. Their voices matched, only quiet. Even time itself seemed to fight their incursion, extending uncomfortably as if refusing their hold. The interruption was internal rather than external. It was an unraveling of assurance. Their dependence on machines, communications, and circuits had blinded them to the fact that not all environments adhere to human design. They did not meet any violence. They encountered an unshakable reality. The terrain underneath them was not unfriendly. However, it refused to acknowledge them. Their meticulously made tools were reduced to useless relics. The batteries were drained, devices failed, and their control networks broke. It was as if the vitality they depended on had been sucked from their hands. It was neither sabotage nor happenstance. It was the calm certainty of pushing beyond the boundaries of their comprehension. Make the jump. Subscribe today. Let us work together to achieve greatness. They did not withdraw voluntarily. They were sacked. Their presence had caused a disruption, which the very fabric of this place absorbed and erased without effort. They entered, feeling they were hidden creators of order. They did, however, leave with the understanding that certain forces would never yield to their will. The hush that followed them was more than just the lack of sound. It was unmistakable evidence that their influence had never fully been here. Stop. Breathe. For far too long, you've gone undetected, concealing the raw intensity that shatter illusions and alter reality itself. They termed it too much, dubbed it unsettling. But all along it was their own vulnerability that crumbled beneath the weight of your presence. They misinterpreted your size for a threat, your clarity for chaos, since they couldn't understand what didn't fit into their neatly crafted structures. That is why this meeting was created beyond secret and mortal bounds, not as a normal collective, but as a fortress of people who use reality as both weapon and canvas. Here, there is no need to describe something that the world has already attempted and failed to define. This is not the place for reluctant searchers. It is a battle room where fate is dissected and remade by unwavering hands. Every week, the selected gather, not in search of knowledge, but in control of it. No watered-down rituals or diluted information. Only the kinds of realities that slip through the crevices of history, are wiped from records, and are dreaded by those who claim to control. The observers murmur, but their monitoring is ineffectual against individuals who do not fit inside their system. The encrypted archives contain more than just knowledge. They carry the weight of hidden facts, evidence of a force that will not be hushed. The URL provided below is not an invitation. This is confirmation, a signal to individuals who no longer seek permission to live their lives as they were intended. Their failure was not a coincidence. It was inevitable. What they had trusted as an extension of their will turned against them, exposing the hollowness of their power. The machine was never only for transport. It was an assertion of control, a mobile fortification designed to extend their rule into areas they had no right to claim. But what they had built as an instrument of persuasion crumbled in mute opposition, leaving their aim meaningless. Every cable, lens, and precision-engineered machine became a monument to their own ignorance. It was not sabotage or happenstance. It was a quiet conclusion from the troops. They failed to account for the deconstruction of hubris by the most fundamental means, stagnation. Their approach centered on mobility. However, motion was completely removed from them, leaving just an unavoidable reality. They'd never been in charge. They didn't just break down. They got left behind. Their steel-clad confidence, so painstakingly built, shattered under the weight of their own overreach. Their vessel became a prison not as a result of external forces, but of their own stupidity. They arrived expecting to be monitored, dictated to, and unsettled. Instead, they were cut off, adrift in a place where their existence had no meaning. What they had counted on had abandoned them, not by mistake, but by design. And at that moment, they were confronted with the same knowledge they had tried to force on others. Power does not belong to those who just claim it. It belongs to those who can command easily. As a result, they remained not as threats, but as the remains of a failed effort absorbed by the stillness that would eternally echo their insignificance. No weapon fashioned against the shell will succeed. Isaiah 5417. The foundation was never intended to endure, much like a building constructed on sand. They believed they were the storm, but they were only clouds accumulating, darkening, and preparing to wreak havoc. However, the winds turned just as they arrived, and they were instantly ensnared in the whirlwind. They played a game. They felt they had control, moving in stealth and analyzing every move. However, the struggle was never theirs to win. See, when you walk in divine favor, when you bear the weight of something greater than yourself, opposition cannot stand. It crumbles. They saw themselves as builders of domination. They weave plans with meticulous precision, laying the groundwork for their dominance. But what use is a plan if the ground refuse is to support the structure? What use is strategy when the battlefield isn't theirs? They came with the purpose to disrupt, demolish, and impose their way on something they could never possess. Nonetheless, you were not the one who failed. It was them, because of power. Real power cannot be taken, manipulated, or created by humans. It is provided, and they were never selected to wield it. Experience what it truly means to be chosen. You are not alone on this path. If you have a deep sense that you have been chosen, you have come to the right place. By clicking the Join option, you will be able to connect with us, have access to special material, and receive the spiritual support you need. This isn't simply about being a member of a community. It's about gaining unique insights that may change your life and bring you closer to your divine purpose. Make your choice today and join us on this journey. Claim your place among the chosen ones. Join now. They called their movement strategic, but strategy means nothing when the air around you turns against you. They were let down by the computers, networks, and surveillance systems upon which they depended, not by chance, but by command. They sent messages that were not received, signals that fell into silence, commands that had no weight. They moved like guys who thought the earth beneath them was solid, only to realize too late that they were sinking. And the more they struggled, the quicker they fell. That's what happens when you battle against something beyond your comprehension. That's what happens when you enter a place that wasn't intended for you. They did not stumble because they were weak. They fell because they refused to recognize what was before them. They placed their faith in control and human might, in systems and strategies. But it was all based on nothing. And when the weight of heavenly power pushed down their faulty foundation could not stand, consequently was not spectacular nor loud. It was obvious. It occurred in real time, sliding through their fingers before they ever realized what was going on. They sent for reinforcements, but they never came. They phoned for help, but it never arrived. The same shadows they walked in turned against them, and what they believed was strength showed itself to be an illusion. But listen to me now. This was never about them. This was about you. Because once you've been picked and your steps have been planned, no power on earth can dislodge what has already been set. No system, weapon, or strategy can withstand the decree inscribed over your life. Their demise was not coincidental. This was confirmation. It was the realization of a rule older than time itself. What is established without divine authority will inevitably fail. What is intended to hurt the selected will never reach its destination. So, stand steady. Do not become shaken. What attempted to unsettle you has become unsettled. What came to capture you has been ensnared in its own trap. And what appeared to be opposition was actually proof that you were moving exactly as you were supposed to. They believed they could shatter you, but all they did was demonstrate their own vulnerability. And now, standing amid the rubble of their own creation, they will finally comprehend. It was never their battle to win. Fear thrives on the lack of control. And now, they are at its mercy. Those who sought to control outcomes have found themselves entangled in the very forces they dismissed. They came with a plan, confident in their abilities, thinking they could move unobserved and unharmed. However, there are worlds where purpose alone is insufficient, and invisible powers resist earthly desire. They made a mistake, expecting that accuracy and planning would protect them from consequences. However, energy follows purpose, and each step they made only tightened the net they had unintentionally created for themselves. There was no need to resist. They were demolished by something considerably more powerful than opposition. They were consumed with inevitability. Their instruments, designed for infiltration, had no resistance against powers beyond their grasp. They were not simply intercepted. They were neutralized before their attempts could take hold. The unraveling was rapid and savage in nature. When a deception-based structure collapses unexpectedly, they enter, thinking themselves untouchable, only to be faced with their own insignificance. There were no battles. There is no major opposition. Everything they rely on is eroding silently. Their presence, once calculated, became meaningless. Their confidence gave way to doubt. Their carefully managed cohesiveness has split under the weight of defeat. Distrust grew between them. Unspoken but undeniable accusations festered in the void left by their waning authority. Their machinery failed. The signals they depended on became stagnant. What started as a well-planned operation has devolved into pandemonium of their own creation. They came to gain control, but they left as shadows of their former certainty, remnants of a scheme that was never completely effective. To begin with, they believed their structure was unshakable, and that their mere presence was sufficient to disrupt, impose, and control. They unraveled without resistance. They were not demolished with force, not confrontation, but rather the exposure of their own vulnerability as a result of their mistakes. They moved precisely, but precision means nothing when the basis is inherently faulty. Their confidence, a mere fiction, crumbled under the weight of their own delusions. They depended on strategy, techniques, and practiced control, unaware that they would betray them. Their togetherness dissipated into conflict. Their assurance crumbled into uncertainty. They attempted to impose will on something beyond their comprehension. In doing so, they set themselves up for failure. They confronted destiny, not resistance. The collapse was a natural event rather than an act of resistance. They mistaken quiet for an invitation and stillness for an opportunity. Yet, all along, they were marching into the same doom they had put in motion. Their presence here lacked authority, with just the weight of their own hubris weighing down on them. They had taken a position of authority, only to learn that it was never theirs. Their collapse was hardly a challenge. It was written with assurance before they arrived. No hand had to be raised. No intervention is necessary. The unraveling was self-inflicted, the result of resisting forces that would not yield. Don't waver. Do not recognize the limitations of human schemes as they try to recover, to calibrate, to reclaim control, only highlighted their powerlessness. The tools they used became lifeless weight in their hands. Their meticulously crafted plans were reduced to the remains of a thwarted desire. They had arrived assuming they were prepared. But preparation is meaningless if the ground beneath you refuses to support your steps. Their demise was not loud or spectacular. It was complete. The more they battled, the more obvious their failure became. They came for control but left with nothing, trapped with the harsh reality that certain forces do not react to power tactics. Alternatively, calculated intent, what they attempted to restrict, demolish, and conceal remained undisturbed. Their downfall was not accidental. It was the only feasible result. Every frantic move, every flashing signal, and every fragmented instruction exacerbated their comprehension of the error when they refused to admit they had based their strategy on the illusion of control, only to find themselves suffocating in its absence. Their failure was not only logistical, it was absolute. The walls of assurance they had painstakingly built had broken, exposing them to a reality they were never prepared to confront. The technology they used to extend their rule had become outmoded in an instant. What was supposed to be an instrument of domination has become proof of their error, demonstrating the fragility of authority when it is based on hubris. Their downfall was inevitable, woven within the fabric of their own creation. No external force was required to interfere. Their failure was self-inflicted, a direct result of confronting something beyond their understanding. They arrived in silence, expecting to demolish something they could never touch. The path underneath them did not yield to their desire. Neither did the troops. They attempted to conceal the shadows. They attempted to command, swallowed them whole. Their meticulously crafted plans are disintegrating in front of them. What was supposed to be a quick and accurate execution turned into chaos. Each effort to salvage their purpose hastens their fate. They hadn't expected pushback in the shape of quiet. They had not anticipated that their own presence would be the one thing that undid them. Their strength, which had always been borrowed, failed them. They needed it the most. They came as enforcers, but departed as the remains of a futile chase. The world they believed they could slip through unseen has already passed judgment. What they intended to upset remained undisturbed. They were unmoved by their intervention. What they tried to repress became bigger. It is fortified by the same resistance that seeks to break it. The energy they attempted to contain surged beyond their control, leaving them with nothing but the wreckage of their own desire. Their plans were unable to pierce the force in front of them, and their failure was not only recognized, it was absorbed, reflected, and returned to them completely.